video world. So, welcome to our final class presentation for Environmental Study 376, Utility Systems. And thank you for coming today, or thank you for watching. Just to give you a little bit of background, this is the first semester this class has been offered, so this is the pioneer group of students in our new Environmental Studies major. And one of the topics that we thought was very important for environmental studies students, any student really, to understand, is how our infrastructure systems work. So that's what this class is about. And it's based upon the book by Scott Mueller called On the Grid that the students read in conjunction with basically approximately weekly panel presentations. So over the course of the semester, this class saw 11 different panels throughout the course, basically every week or week and a half, representing different infrastructural areas. And some of the panelists are here today, so thank you very much. They also undertook as a final project to look at the CSU Monterey Bay Master Plan. That's the master plan for the university, and apply a lot of what the knowledge they learned from both the panelists and from the readings and from the discussions in class to thinking about how the university can grow into the future. So without further ado, I will turn it over to them and our first presenter, John Hill.
Hello. So this past semester we've learned that infrastructure is one of the most fundamental aspects of any society. It allows us to maintain the health, safety, convenience, and comfort that we've grown accustomed to in the United States. We've been analyzing systems that make up our infrastructure and how they function. Through our readings, presentations, and discussions, we have learned that proper planning is essential to creating infrastructure that is efficient, resilient, economical, and sustainable. In the United States, the average infrastructure grade is a D+. This grade is a result of poor planning, old age, or even just improper maintenance. With proper planning, we can revitalize old infrastructure and ensure that new infrastructure remains effective far into the future. In an effort to put our knowledge into practical use, we've developed a campus master plan for CSU Monterey Bay that provides guidelines for how the campus can grow while maintaining high-quality infrastructure that positively impacts the students, the environments, and the surrounding communities. A little background information about the campus. Following the 1994 closure of Fort Ord Military Base, CSUMB was founded and classes began in August of 1995. CSUMB is the second youngest university in the CSU system with a relatively small student body of 5,700 full-time students located on 1,400 acres of land. While campus improvements have been going on for almost 2 decades now, there are still many opportunities to plan for the future and establish a campus infrastructure that promotes sustainability, social justice, and economic development, both on campus and in the surrounding region. The projected future enrollment for CSUMB will be 12,000 full-time students by the year 2024. A few years later, we will be at our goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030, as per the Climate Action Plan for CSUMB. The Climate Action Plan was commissioned as part of a larger pledge to fulfill the goals specified in the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, which was signed by our former President Diane Harrison in 2007. The Climate Action Plan also helps comply with 2 other important policies. Senate Bill AB 32, which requires a mandatory reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and California Executive Order S1204, which mandates overall reductions in energy consumption. Current President Eduardo Ochoa has subsequently signed the ACU, PCC, and the Climate Action Plan. This commitment to sustainability that we have on campus corresponds well with many concepts that we've learned this semester. The US EPA defines sustainability as creating and maintaining the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony while fulfilling the social, economic, and other requirements of present and future generations. This idea of planning for future generations is also critical to creating effective infrastructure. Therefore, the focus of the Campus Master Plan relies heavily on the theme of utilizing sustainable practices to create infrastructure that is effective, resilient, and economical. This report will identify key systems that can be improved through a variety of different methods that greatly range in scale. Improvements will benefit campus by reducing environmental impacts, improving reliability, providing opportunities for education, creating long-term cost savings, improving the campus aesthetically, and enhancing the quality of life for students and staff. So let's go ahead and get started by talking about transportation on campus.
or efficient traffic flow is essential to create a productive campus, and it affects the ambience of the campus. So we want to create a car-free and pedestrian-friendly campus. And by doing this, we want to increase and expand the different bike paths. Create a bike share program so students can pick up bikes with their student ID and then be able to drop it off at the different bike share places on our campus. We want to close up a few streets, Devarty Street, 5th Avenue, and 6th Avenue, to make it actually a closed campus. We want to change the parking, so maybe build parking garages, and then the parking that is on campus, make that prime parking for the car holders. And we want to change MST, create express routes to different shopping centers and to the different train stations in Marine and Monterey. So we closed off Devarty Street, 5th Avenue, and 6th Avenue, and this is already closed off right here. It's already closed off right there in front of the road theater. So we want to do that throughout these different roads too, and only allow the different buses or trolleys to go through. And we want to develop a carpooling group so people that park in the parking garages that are farther from campus can still get to class on time without walking super far. And then create special parking permits for people who do want to carpool, so they get like the prime parking spots.
My name is Joe Peterson, and I'll be talking about parking and public transportation. One of the biggest things that was an asset when the school first opened was the amount of parking that's available. Because the school's so big, there's tons of open lots. But unfortunately, this makes it so our campus has a lot of traffic that goes through. So we had some ideas on how to reduce the number of cars that park on campus and hopefully reduce the number of cars that come to campus in general. So, as stated before, we should construct some parking garages and designate special parking places in the bottom of the garages and in the front of the lots for carpools. And our main goal is to locate the parking to the perimeter of campus so that cars won't be traveling through, and then the shuttles that already run through campus continue to actually bump those up to they go every 15 minutes, and then they can run about every 7 to 8 minutes so that people can take the trolley from the parking garages and go to their specific buildings. So these green rectangles are where we propose to put parking garages. And while the streets we have closed right, Diverty's right here, 5th and 6th, which is already, right in here is already closed off a little bit, actually, so right here is already closed off. But what we'll be doing will be closing off this parking lot completely and the ones right around the science building, so that traffic will have to flow on either side of campus, which flows down around here. But the idea is that the shuttles will still be able to go through right through these parts that are closed off. So you can still get to all these buildings. And as far as public transportation, we really wanted to address the needs of a lot of students on campus, especially ones that don't have vehicles. It's difficult for them to get places, whether it be Monterey, Salinas, to go shopping. So there are buses that run, but they run about every 45 minutes to an hour right now, and the timing is a little off. It can be 10 minutes early, 15 minutes late. It makes it very difficult to try and plan your day out when you can't really rely on the bus system. So our idea is to create some express bus routes that go to the Salinas Transportation Center, Monterey Transportation Center, and Marina Transportation Center, where people can take buses out to different areas from there. And we'd also like to be able to let students do some shopping and things like that. So we came up with the idea of doing express buses to the Sand City Shopping Center and the Monte Shopping Center, so that they can.
So we also think it's important to increase pedestrian and bicycle traffic and ways that they can travel through the campus. To do this, we think it's important to establish a bike share program where people that may not have a bike can also have access to bicycles on campus, similar to how we already do with our cycle center. But instead of having to rent a bike for a day or for a week or so, they could pick up a bike at one of our designated areas, ride it to their class, and drop it off at another one of the centers, whichever one's the most convenient. It'd be done electronically with your student ID so that we can keep track of the locations of the bikes as well as who's using it. In order to make this successful, we have to also increase the number of bike racks on campus because we hope to have more of the student population utilizing bicycle traffic. And some of the closed streets that we will have will also be converted similarly as it is now on 6th Avenue to walkways with the pavers rather than concrete and streets. So this is a map here. These blue circles here illustrate the areas we propose to install the bike centers, where we have different bikes available for for students' use. Each of the little green bicycles are the bike racks we currently have on campus. A lot of them are located near dormitories and other popular areas on campus, but we think it would also be important to increase the number of them simply because a lot of them are just have enough capacity for maybe 5 or 6 bikes. And then also, some of the proposed ideas we have come with large costs, but we think that we have adequate system for accounting for these costs. Currently, the public transportation system is $18 per semester for each student, and they have access to MST to ride on all of their lines for free. According to our transportation director, Maggie Tolbert, this is the most cost-effective transportation university transit system in the world. We'd like to maintain that for the students, keep costs low in that regard. However, during the construction of the 2 parking garages, we've estimated that at about $60 per square foot, it would cost around $8.7 million for each of these 2 structures. Not considering any grant funding or any alternative sources of funding, it would cost approximately $145 to $305 per student per semester over the course of 10 years. And these parking structures would provide parking for between 750 to 1,000 cars. This would allow us to make our campus a car-free campus so that we would not only reduce our carbon emissions, but also increase the aesthetic qualities of our campus.
Evening. My name is Gregorio. This is Mallory. And this is Matthew. We have the pleasure of working on the waste management system here solely at CSUMB, and talks will be going over the plastic beverage container reduction plan, or anaerobic digester on campus, the creating an educational program of waste management to the school and the community in East Campus, recycling compost bins at the bus stop around campus and sidewalks, and our e-waste facility on campus. Master Plan.
So as a preliminary measure, we would like to try and reduce waste at the source, and a good way to do this would be phasing out the use of plastic and paper beverage containers on campus. We'd also like to offer low-cost reusable cups and water bottles on campus, and put in 20 new Brita water stations at heavily occupied areas on campus. Currently, we only have 1 at Pete's Coffee, and it was actually not working for quite a few weeks. So also at Pizza and Starbucks, in order to incentivize people to use the reusable containers, we would like to impose an additional fee on the plastic and paper cups currently used. This is similar to the fee on plastic bags in Monterey. And that money would help fund the 20 Brita water stations, which are about $1,800 each. Also, we would like to purchase CSUMB's very own anaerobic digester. This would only be about $2 to $3 million. And the way that an anaerobic digester works is it harnesses the gases emitted from the decomposition process of organic matter, such as carbon dioxide and methane, and it turns it into an energy source. The remaining matter can be used as fertilizer. So along with the anaerobic digester, we would like to collaborate with PG&E to establish a contract that would allow us to sell the energy we generate back onto the grid. This is similar to the feed-in tariff in other countries such as Germany. And of course, this would depend on how much energy we'd actually generate, but it could be an additional source of revenue. And in 2010, agricultural operations alone generated enough energy to power 25,000 average-sized homes.
Currently at CSUMB, we have plenty of recyclable facilities, recyclable receptacles for the in-building and around the outside of the large buildings on campus. However, there are 22 possible places we would love to have recycling bins and compost bins. They're mostly designated around where people would be transported to, or walk around on a daily basis. We have, in reference, this is the library right here, big red circle, and then around every quarter of a mile we have a recyclable bin for compost and recycling. There are recycling bin programs that actually offer free bins if needed. As accordance with the California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Chapter 5, Section 2135, they're actually allowed and encourage us to promote educational programs regarding this recycling and educational type programs along with it. The only thing we would have to pay for would be small gallon compost bins. That would cost about $1,210. But that would be a short-term goal. On the large-term goal, we would like a waste diversion facility, specifically more with e-waste materials. E-waste materials would actually, on campus, minimize toxic contributions to landfills and runoff and pollution to the ground specifically. Our center would be an on-site trade-in and repair site training for students to conserve reuse of modern devices. The actual location would be 100 Campus Center, Seaside, CA, that's actually over here by the watershed, and we'd be reusing an existing building to stay behind the support of reusing old materials and preservation of the school. Only about 12.5% of e-waste is recycled, as accordance to the DoSomething.org as of last year. We want to see the students educated about the benefits of e-recycling of things that they would actually have in their home, because in their dorms. The students already know 3 R's: recycling, reducing, reusing, and so our site would offer educational programs to East Campus on basically recycling day, but that would basically be for electronic waste and other devices. In accordance with the CED, covered electronic devices, we would only take certain amounts of electronic devices, that's not including batteries. But the CED would ensure the disposal and safe purposes to certain electronic devices on campus and what we could recycle. The actual process for how the center would be run by service learners, other nonprofits like Gray Bears or BFR, and in the Seaside area. But devices we would actually be treating certain materials and electronic wastes in motherboards, circuit breakers, and also televisions. There are many dangerous chemicals and materials within these electronic devices that we would need to process safely and should be aware of and educate the public. But in order to do that, we need to be able to train our own students about the lead, mercury, cadmium, and BFR in their own electronic devices. So a large number of what we would handle would be labeled for the public in CSUMB and at East Campus. And educating the public for events of move-out days, like here on campus, would be another thing we want to be involved with on a daily basis.
We'd also like to implement a waste education system, so that would be closely incorporated through CSUMB, and it would be interacting with the local community. They would be responsible for things like that, beach trash pickup days, compost education, like possibly creating compost bins, and teach people how to use them, and just overall waste-wise thinking, recycling education, better shopping plans to just overall help reduce waste in our community and at CSUMB.
Good afternoon, my name is Jasmine Estrada. I'm going to introduce our water management team, Stephanie and Sarah. So the topics we're going to go over regarding water management is leasing out surplus CSUMB water, implementing rainwater harvesting sites on campus, using new technology and the public to limit water loss, and utilize gray and reclaimed water at CSUMB. Okay, so the first goal I'd like to propose to you is the implementation of rainwater harvesting sites on campus. According to the Rainwater Capture Bill of 2012, the on-site capture, storage, and use of rainwater and stormwater for non-potable uses significantly reduces demand for potable water. So the concept is simple. You collect water on rooftops, then divert that to a large tank, and then that tank stores the water for later use, like during the dry and warm months. In this case, at CSUMB, it would be used for irrigation purposes. So why CSUMB? Why should we implement these harvesting sites? Well, one, CSUMB has an opportunity to be a leader in water conservation. Additionally, a representation of water conservation in the form of water tanks is very appealing to attracting water-conscious students. Additionally, CSUMB has several thousand square feet of lawn area just outside this building that is annually irrigated. Additionally, we have the potential of capturing over 84,000 gallons a year given our annual rainfall and the average rooftop area on campus. So, to be practical, I believe that CSUMB should implement one or two tanks on campus just for a test run. So, using GIS, I identified these buildings to be Everset Hall and Yarrow Hall. Both halls are within 100 feet proximity to the lawn areas. That will allow distribution costs to be minimized. Additionally, both halls are requires elevation above the lawn area, so we will implement gravity to help distribute that water. And given the square footage of both halls, each has the potential to collect 91,000 gallons of water a year.
Okay, so we have a couple of other ideas to deal with our stormwater. So these are hydrophilic pavers. They were brought to my attention by Paul Hathaway, who works with Interlock Paving. And because we have a rainy season of November to April, this product allows for 100% permeability. It allows for drainage of 3 inches per hour, and at $350 to $450 per square foot, this product helps reduce transfer erosion, reduces runoff, rehydrates soil, and our local aquifers. UC Berkeley, Santa Clara University, San Francisco State, they've all implemented this on their campus and seen positive results. They've reaped benefits from it. And it reduces the need for our school to expand their drainage infrastructure. These are storm chambers and retention basins that are local. This is through Jim Arnold from Fora. So it's a subsurface stormwater management product where water runoff is collected and it's not removed. It's been successfully implemented in Marina, California, 2 areas at the Engine Office Park and at the Marina Engine Shopping Center. It costs about $25,000 for 3 or 4 of those chambers in the photo, and the retention basins can also be used where water goes into these. It filters out leaves and rocks and other debris, and it goes down into this pipe to the retention basin. Oh, that's right here. Yeah, if you go to the scan. This is the native species restoration part of our idea. It's a way to meet the campus landscape aesthetic requirement. For CSUMB, it can be a pilot to use native habitat with no water resources required. The seeds can be cleaned, sowed, and watered at our greenhouse facility. Restoration work would be gladly done by Return the Natives, which is an education outreach branch of our Watershed Institute. It costs about $3,800 to do a project like this. It would include a public planting day where people would come out, be required to put all the plants on the sites, and these are 3 proposed sites that we would say are areas that would work. And this allows for community involvement and get the local area to be a part of projects in CSUMB.
Next is gray water, which contains traces of dirt, food, grease, and hair, and it's mainly from showers and washing machines as well as bathtubs. And it's sent through a separate system than a regular sewage system and set in a holding tank where it's then gone through a filter. And this can be used for irrigation. It's safe for irrigation with all the lawns, not football, but soccer, baseball, softball fields, maybe even a football field, or community and student gardens, and then as well as refilling toilets. And then we have reclaimed water, which is currently used by Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency. There's currently infrastructure and piping nearby that's used for agriculture. I noticed that there's also piping here on campus. This would be awesome to utilize these for vegetation purposes as well. Next is Aquifer Storage and Recovery System, or ASR. Here it's called the Groundwater Replenishment Project, or GWR, which is artificially pumping water back into the Seaside Basin Aquifer. And program here is called Pure Water Monterey, and it's done through Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, and Calian Water. Seeing this project through could help provide water for the increasing number of students on this campus, as well as providing sustainable allocations and helping to eliminate some of the effects of saltwater intrusion. This project is already in its advanced stages and could be online by 2016.
So, along with implementing programs to conserve water on our campus, we also have the opportunity currently to potentially capitalize the resources we already have. And for one, we can go ahead and start with water. So here you can see CSUMB's current water allocations set forth by Flora. And we actually, if you can see here, we use a little bit less than half. CSUMB's water allocation right now is 1,035 acre-feet per year, which at our current rate of consumption could theoretically support another CSUMB at current consumption. So our plan would be to, since we only consume 438 acre-feet of water annually right now, we can potentially have the available leasing options to lease 597 acre-feet of water per year. Also, in our proposal, the CSUMB is projected to complete its full build-out by the year 2025. So that would mean that between now and 2025, we would have probably a potential of 5 years between 2015 and 2020 to go ahead and lease these extra water resources, which would, when if negotiations do pan out, an example could be at $550 per acre foot of water. The school could generate potentially $1.4 million, which we can utilize to go ahead and support all of these sustainable plans that we have set out in the master plan. Thank you.
I'm Melissa, and I'm introducing our agriculture department within the proposal. And this is Francisco, Haley, and Danny. But we believe that we can create a more sustainable campus with food. We're unique because we're located only a few miles away from agriculture valley, such as Salinas. And we believe we should take advantage of this unique opportunity by supporting our local ag community, create new educational opportunities for students while connecting students with the community food system. Our goals within the proposal are to have students more involved with dining services and decisions on campus, which would include conducting a survey on dining services annually, growing organic produce by students for the students, and to support our local economy. One such way would be have local vendors on campus. A great example I found of this was at San Jose State. They have the Street Eats program, and I believe it's on a weekly basis. Local vendors come to campus and serve food, and they're voted in from by the students. The students get the food that they want, and there's more variety of food choices on campus. And then we also, our biggest project and long-term goal would be to start an ag department on campus, and in addition to that, give students incentives with healthy food programs to eat better for their own health and the environment.
So I have a quick question. How many of you guys know how many universities have an ag program? Any idea? I found six schools. That's Cal Poly, Pomona, Chico State, Fresno State, UC Davis, and Riverside. And here in Monterey, we don't have them, and we're right across the street from agriculture. So I found that pretty wow. But anyways, here in Monterey, there's the crop harvest of 2012 was 282,694 acres of crop harvesting. That's a lot. And then, another fun fact, 80% of the salad greens come from this valley to supply the United States. And with the sustainable ag department, we would have a major such as agriculture business, plant science, food science, crop science, organic farming, and classes that would be offered were your basic agriculture classes, soils. There's already a soils class. We just expand on that subject. Irrigation classes, crop and plant classes as well. And we could have for internships partner up with local businesses to help the students in their future, and also service learning at our school farm, which we would have one. Our school farm would we would acquire it through a loan or a rent or a donation from a local farmer. It would be organic, full organic, and also provide two greenhouses so we could grow year round. Tractors and equipment, we could lease them or buy those used, a little cheaper. The vegetables we would grow would be lettuce, spinach, broccoli, strawberries, celery, among others. And what I found in a few universities like Pomona and Michigan State, they sell their produce on campus, the ones they grow from their farms, and the farming is produced by the students. We would do that through service learning, volunteers, stuff like that.
Okay, another improvement we would like to see at CSUMB is the establishment of sustainable food gardens throughout campus. As you can see, there's a lot of unused space or underused space, like the 1,000 square feet of lawn just outside. Here's some more of that lawn, unused, dry now. Here's some more. Everybody, well, all the students are probably familiar with this area, which is because we have to park our cars over there now. It's just a huge area when we have more. There's some more, just that empty space we could be using for sustainable gardens or even just a couple of plots here and there. So yes, there's definitely room to spare for some sustainable food gardens on campus. Some of the existing gardens we have on campus are like in East Campus, which are pretty barren and also underused. It looks like maybe a couple of people are using them, growing some chard and things. However, we do have a very small, successful garden club garden. I'm not 100% sure if all of their practices are very sustainable, but it sure looks nice. There's people in there. That was very exciting when I went. So we would like to see more of this in our empty spaces on campus. The sustainable garden expansion would be all organic, no chemical fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, or herbicides allowed. Establishing food gardens throughout campus would be providing food for like farm stand on campus run by the garden club.
I'm going to talk about on-campus dining. So like Melissa touched on in the beginning, we suggest creating a campus-wide survey where students can voice their opinions and what they would like to see changed. Currently, we have a very large corporation, Sodexo, providing all of our services. So with that, we would like to see the survey express students' voices in a better manner, as well as we would like to review the contract. From there, we can advocate for food source transparency, labeling of foods containing GMOs, foods containing refined flours and sugars, and increase of food being certified organic and local, as well as decreasing buffet style, which incentivizes students to eat excessive amounts. Between the survey and review, CSUMB could encourage healthier eating and sustainability. Currently, to be eligible for on-campus housing in majority of the buildings, all besides one, students must purchase a meal plan. These meal plans range from $1,500 to $1,750. Based on a 4-month semester, students pay an estimated $93 on food per week. In addition to the survey and contract review, we suggest that to no longer require meal plans. While meal plans requirements do provide security for bulk food providers, if food were to be increased and changed on campus based off of the survey, we still feel like there would be money put into it and that security would no longer be needed. For our farm, which Francisco touched on as well, we would also like to create a connection with the Sustainable Agriculture Program, where there could be a collaboration between students and the community. Some of the produce grown could be contributed to the dining commons on campus, as well as hosting classes and workshops for the students and community members. Some examples of classes and workshops that could be offered can include edible botany and the foundations of fermentation, intro into organic gardening, and an intro into pollinators with a workshop on beekeeping. This could create excellent internship and volunteer opportunities for the campus and bring the community closer together. Lastly, to encourage healthy eating among students who purchase semester-long meal plans and qualify as low income, an incentive program could be initiated. In this, if students who are part of the program purchase meals that are 75% fresh fruits and vegetables 3 times a week, they could get 20% of their purchase back into their account to help alleviate costs on campus, as well as incentivize healthy and sustainable eating.
I'm Eric.
My name is Alyssa.
And I'm Jorgo.
We are part of the energy committee for this project. It's our energy proposal. So for our current situation, we wanted to go over kind of a background of what energy is going and where we are, what direction the college is taking right now. And so, as the introduction said, we're being aware of current energy consumption right now. Energy consumption is like a main problem and a main issue that we try to attack, instead of like trying to concentrate more on like innovating more expensive advanced technologies. One big thing that our campus is doing is focusing on energy consumption. And so one thing we followed was the AAC, the ACU, American College University President's Climate Commitment, and that talked about the CSUMB Energy and Utilities Management. That's happening, and what happened was there was an energy efficiency program in 2005, and between 2005 and 2010, the main campus energy use was reduced by 20% for CSUMB campus, and that was really important and something we'd like to highlight. And one really important thing that we've noticed through our research was that HVAC and lighting facilities took up the most energy consumption in a lot of the areas. And that was something that could be improved, and it was improved as part of the energy efficiency program. Go ahead.
So, of the 2 LEED certified buildings on campus, neither of those have solar panels on top of them. And of the BIT building that's being proposed, that doesn't have solar panels on top of it either. That clashes with the goal set forth by the CSU Board of Trustees of having energy-independent campuses within the next couple of decades. And in order to meet that goal, energy production on-site is pivotal. So we should expand beyond the solar farm that we have that currently produces about 2 million kilowatts of energy per year. And that meets 16% of our energy needs right now. With over 500 square feet of available roof space, there's plenty of work that we can do. And just across the street at the VA clinic, we have rooftop solar panels and solar panels on top of the parking lot that produce 785 kilowatts. So it is feasible. It's just not being implemented. And in order to jumpstart opportunities, we can divert funds from the recent $33 million renovation fund that was approved by the CSU Board of Trustees for CSUMB. And there's line items specifically for curtailing greenhouse gases. And among these ways is implementing new solar panels and another technique that I'm going to mention.
All right, so this is a newer kind of progressive idea. It's been implemented in the recent years, kind of around 2013. There's a case study that I'll talk about, and this is a technology called smart meters. It's something that could be possibly suggested for future use, and I think it's actually going to be implemented in sustainable communities that want to start focusing on their current energy consumption. And what a smart meter is an electric device that records the consumption of electric energy in intervals of an hour or less. And so it displays energy usage to the public, it provides awareness of energy consumption, and it provides an understanding of average usage. So this could provide for like an excellent learning environment for educational purposes and for educational facilities like this area. The possible implementations could be in major buildings and also in like libraries and dormitory rooms possibly. And there was a case study that was done, and it was about successful implementation in Sweden. And it was a case where they implemented these into residential areas and areas where the public community can actually see their energy consumption, and it helped them to kind of be aware and learn more about how much their energy was being used at different times of the day and different seasons. It was really interesting. Go ahead.
So another idea that we have to reduce energy consumption on campus is to implement a green roof. And a green roof is a covering of vegetation over a waterproof membrane that can improve the building's overall insulation and drainage. Normal roofs, like what we have on campus right now, are the site of the largest heat loss during the winter months and the hottest temperatures during the summer months. So increased insulation provided by green roofs could decrease the energy needed to control the temperature of the building. And a little fun fact, green roofs are 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit cooler during the day and around 10 degrees warmer at night. We live in a really cool climate here, so the 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit cooler isn't a big issue, but it would be nice on warmer days like what we're going to be experiencing this week. And on average, 1/3 of building energy use is allocated for heating and cooling alone, so it'd be really important to implement something like this that could help reduce that. So this is just an image of green roof structure, which includes the plant level, the substrate, the filter sheet, a drainage layer, a protection mat, a root barrier, a waterproofing membrane, and the roof construction itself. Next slide. So the initial cost is around $15 per square foot, which is a little scary in comparing to traditional roofing cost, which is around $220 per square foot. But that's only for roll asphalt or single-ply roofing, which provides minimal insulation. Annual maintenance costs come around 75 cents per square foot, and these costs could easily be earned back over time through the building's increased insulation value, which can save on energy heating and cooling costs. And green roof lifespans last on average around 2 to 3 times longer than a traditional roof, so it'd be a really good idea. And not only can it provide increased insulation and reduce our energy consumption, but it could also add to the aesthetics of our campus. So combined technology, since we introduced the idea of implementing more solar panels on campus, there are studies that have found that using solar panels on green roofs are actually beneficial because they can play off of each other and they benefit from each other. Green roofs reduce the operation temperature of the PV system, which here, like I mentioned before, we have a cooler climate, but like we're going to be experiencing this week, warmer temperatures, it could be beneficial. And overall, it increases the efficiency and overall energy yield of the PV system itself. And our campus has huge energy potential and could significantly reduce the amount of energy we are consuming at this time.
I'm Jack, this is Tyler, and we're going to be talking about building for the future. So I just wanted to start out real quick. This is pulled from the CSUMB website. It's the 2008 CSUMB retention rates for students based on the first-year students that started in the fall of 2008. It does a little comparison with other CSUs, and they're all roughly in the same range, give or take. But Monterey Bay does tend to err on the side of having students drop out. And the couple things that I think about when I think of reasons why people would leave our campus are you're either dissatisfied with your living conditions and your environment, or you're dissatisfied with the academic experience you're getting. Now, granted, they've only been there for a year at this point. I think it's fair to say that a portion of this is more likely due to environmental reasons as opposed to academic reasons. So we just want to keep that in mind because we think that making significant improvements in building design and the overall aesthetic and quality of life that students get in the residential halls and in their class buildings could potentially have an impact on this.
And then in terms of building, here are some of our focus points, and that is our responsibility for the past and future of building stock, a responsibility for resource consumption, integrating smart designs of building systems, controlling indoor environmental quality, and having desirable aesthetics.
All right, so the first topic we're going to cover is site planning, and I notice a lot of you guys are conveniently from the building panels. So this is really important, I think, particularly at CSUMB because we have been relatively ineffective at utilizing all of the old buildings. We'd like to do new buildings. Granted, we have, what does it say? Since CSUMB opened in '95, the campus has expanded its use of existing military structures from 6 to 67. And that's from the environmental impact report. I think that that's a good start, but there are a lot of buildings that need to be deconstructed rather than breaking virgin land out in other spots that are easier and more financially feasible. I think that the benefits of doing that will pay off in the long run. Let's see. So I just want to go over a couple of stats about how many students we have now and what it was the campus master plan in '97, or the corridor reuse plan, was calling for 12,500 full-time students on campus, and right now, as of last fall, we have 5,732. So we're just getting to roughly the halfway point, and by the end of build-out, we should have 5,100 student dwelling units and about 3,100 residential units, which I believe is referring to East Campus would be residential, North Quad is, and the res halls would be student dwelling units. Okay, so go to the next slide. A couple things to think about in site planning is definitely the kind of obvious. You would like to have your buildings facing south so that they're solar ready in case we ever get the money to actually put solar panels on the roof. That's an option and typically more effective. And I've read some stuff in the past about building up rather than building out. So I think it will be beneficial from a community standpoint to have buildings that are centralized around the core of campus and maybe have bigger buildings towards the center rather than having more development spread out farther away. It will facilitate community development. And one thing that I'm personally really not fond of is demolition. And what was Doug Atkins, yeah. Doug got me really interested in the design for deconstruction concept, and I have a couple slides from that. But I think that's going to be a main focus of what we're suggesting we do in the future, is to make sure that we take the lessons that he learned from Chartwell. And there's actually a really informative EPA paper written on it that talks about all of the ins and outs that they went through to do that. You can go to that.
So in terms of resources, we focused a lot on water and electricity usage. And so, as you know, once a building is designed and completed in construction, the designer has no say in the behaviors of that building after, and like the usage. And in a study at the University of Michigan, they found that 83% of the inventoried environmental burdens came solely from operations. And that's something that we really found important, especially at CSUMB, because our current model, on-campus residents, they pay an upfront fee to live on campus, and they pay no utilities. And East Campus is very similar, except they pay on a monthly basis. And so we would like to conduct a study to find the average baseline of what students on campus and students living in East Campus are using in utilities and how much that would cost. And with that, we would, if the technology is already available on our campus, we would like to figure out if there is a way to calculate the used water electricity in every room, and if not, we'd be really interested in some metering, so just like how the energy portion of the project mentioned, but sub-metering in the sense of like multifamily buildings, so we could calculate each room. So with that in mind, we would want to charge the same way, so on campus they still get charged the same amount up front, East Campus they still get charged the same amount every month, but at the end of the semester, students would be accredited if they were below that average because they paid the average, and so if they use less, they should be awarded for using less, simple as that. But then in the event that they go over that average, they would have to pay more, and so, yeah, they'd have to pay the difference. And so to keep it incentivizing for the university to do something like this, if students use less resources during the semester, those credits would only be able to be used on campus still, so like tuition, parking passes, bookstore, whatever it may be. And we find that this, or feel that this is very important because institutions of higher learning really pride themselves on preparing their students for living outside of university. And what are students gaining if they're not paying for their utilities, they're not understanding the concept of their daily habits in terms of the environment.
Okay, so materials and design. This is like a huge topic, and I'm not even going to attempt to cover even a remotely significant portion of all the things that go into it. But there are a few things that we really want to stress. So design for deconstruction, like I was mentioning earlier, and life cycle analysis. Those are kind of like the themes. I know that when a building is beyond its life cycle, 50, 60 years in the future, it's incredibly costly to break it down. And then not only that, but you're left with relatively unusable materials a lot of times. You ever ripped out stud wall or demoed concrete, you know that it's mostly useless afterwards. So that being said, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I have a slide from Chartwell. But I found a study that was done, I think, somewhere in Canada, and they ran the numbers for the life cycles of different kinds kinds of buildings in their city that are made of steel, concrete, and wood. And for the most part, they found that wood buildings, this seems like common sense, but wood buildings don't last quite as long. But because you can't really predict the future and what your needs are going to be in the future and the demands and that kind of stuff, you don't necessarily know that a building is going to follow the life cycle plan. At the end of the paper, they were actually arguing that life cycle analysis of the building is not as reliable as we would like it to be. And there was a quote that I want to read you because it's something I've better put it. It says, rather than attempt to predict the future and design permanent structures with an infinite lifespan, we are probably better off in acknowledging our inability to make such predictions and instead design for easy adaptation and material recovery. That being said, I would propose that when we have the option to choose wood over concrete and steel, it would be well advised to do so, because I don't have the actual numbers for this, but I've read in a lot of places that wood has a significantly lower embodied carbon footprint than concrete and steel. And you could replace it a few times over before it would add up to the amount of that concrete. And a lot of times if you design it correctly, it can be reclaimed and used in other things. So, I'm going to move on from that. There is a list that's going around, if any of you are up to date on the Living Building Challenge from the Living Future Institute. They have something called the Red List, and it's just a bunch of material components and chemical components that are, bad for your health and emit volatile organic compounds. So, through my experience, it's really hard to find products on the market that contain none of that, but it is a worthwhile endeavor to try and reduce your use of materials. For example, when you get plywood sheeting, a lot of times they have formaldehyde resins that bind almost most building materials have formaldehyde resins in them. There's 3 different kinds, and they make plywood, this is just a small example, that has ultra-low emitting phenylformaldehyde, which is technically the better option. So when we have choices like that that can be made, or options that can be chosen, that would be preferable. Another thing is the integrated HVAC, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and building envelope design. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But a couple other things just to blow through these. Advanced framing, building 24 inches on center rather than 16 on center. Eliminating unnecessary wood. And next slide. Okay, so this is an example of the wood paneling they used at Chartwell in the study that the EPA did. This was kind of like a case study, and they got funding through them, I believe, to document everything. They had a couple options. So this would be standard, which is more or less just nailing the panels in, which when you rip those out, it's going to be really hard to rip them out, and it's going to render a lot of these unusable unless you want to take the time to get all the nails out. The other option was using clips, which takes more time, it's more costly in installing, but when it comes to deconstruction and reuse later on, that financial difference will be more or less made up. And then there was another option that involved some kind of glue or tape. I don't think they used that. Anyways, that's that. And then this was a figure that I think also came from the EPA study. It just talks about carbon, embodied carbon per pound of material. And it's pretty small to read, but I think you go through this later. It's and indoor environmental quality. So this kind of gets to what we were talking about at the beginning about keeping students around, about having comfortable living spaces and healthy living spaces. The main goal here is to have control over the air movement, which more or less means that it's not leaking out of places that you don't know about because you sealed up everything from the get-go. Now, I've heard a lot of different opinions about this, and it's somewhat debatable, but I myself am pretty convinced that if you have well air-sealed building envelopes in combination with a kind of top-of-the-line ventilation system, then it's not only more energy efficient because you can maintain the heat that you're using as it escapes. They have the heat recovery ventilators, which try and capture the heat as it's going out with the air that's coming in. So it's more energy efficient, and you also are pulling air from sources and places around the building that aren't necessarily places with like near crawl space or near the foot of the building where suspended particles in air could come in. Overall, it increases the quality of the air. And then there's aligning the thermal moisture and pressure barrier. There's some science behind that, but
So aesthetics are definitely the combination of all these components, and we feel that this is most directly tied to what Zach mentioned in the beginning about the student retention rate on campus. So to the body and mind, which have been cramped by noxious work company, nature is medicinal and restores their tone. That's by Ralph Waldo Emerson and Nature. And so the campus climate action plan and the campus master plan really call for creating a culture of sustainability, and this really pushes for community place, having health and wellness, and this is really important because this is the combination of everyone's work, and it's being able to not just be stuffed up in a building. It's about being pedestrian oriented, being able to go outside, having these integrated student life and academic life components with natural environments, and that's really including the local environment, so like open meadows, built things like plazas, lawns, using all the oak in the area, and so it's really a combination of all these things that really make the university. And we find this overarchingly very important in productivity because recently Harvard Medical School, they came out with a newsletter about blue lights, and blue lights are from LED lights, your cell phone, computers, all these great things that we are absorbing throughout our daily lives. And the newsletter emphasized that they may have cancer-causing abilities, including obesity, and they heavily affect the circadian rhythm, which is your ability to sleep. And so this is really important because one of the ways to combat this is going outside all day. Not all day, but having a significant amount of natural light in your daily activities. And so if the university isn't providing that, and we have these night classes, students staring at Netflix all night or something like that, that's not creating a healthy, well environment, and that's really important to students' overarching benefits at the university.
Report and our presentation with something semi-practical to implement, and so that the sustainability committee can probably propose as action steps towards implementing our climate action plan. So ideally, like we talked about, the water leases would give us an availability of $1.4 million to provide funding for all the programs that we have outlined in our master plan. We would like that to happen within the next 6 months to 1 year so that we can secure funding for these programs. Next, we would think it'd be a great idea in order to reduce the traffic coming in and out of our campus to establish the bike share program within a timeline about 3 years. Along with that, in another 3 to 5 years, we'd like to go ahead and implement the e-waste center and smart meters on campus that will also help us create educational programs for the students and at the same time conserve more energy. And our food service survey, we'd like to ideally implement that now so that we can get back feedback from the students about their concerns of our current food systems, and so they can kind of just relate their experiences with the current company that we have, which is CSUMB. And hopefully we can start implementing more agriculture-related programs for the next 4 years. Finally, we'd like to go ahead and implement the green roof and solar technology and have that completed in a timeline from anywhere between 15 to 20 years, which will drastically reduce our carbon footprint on the campus and ideally have us reach our climate action plan goal of being carbon neutral by the year 2030. And with that said, we'll go ahead and open the floor to any questions or comments that you guys may have. And if you have a specific question to a section, maybe we can have the panelists come up and answer those questions for you guys. Thank you.
Wow. Questions?
I'll start a question. I was curious how much the groups interacted with each other about their subject. Is there much? Yeah.
I think an example for us was definitely with green building. We all wanted to do green roofs because it not only conserves water, but it affects heating and just the energy usage of the building is all tied into that. So there's definitely discussions around who's gonna switch over what project into their field.
Okay.
So there was overlap.
Okay, because the reason I ask is because I saw a lot of opportunities where like the different subjects could be kind of integrated. And so, for instance, the people that were looking at reducing the parking spaces, I was curious what you would propose to do with all the asphalt that we see when we come onto campus. So I saw through the through the agriculture or water group opportunities for you to take over those asphalt spaces and turn it into something that's productive and energy efficient and aesthetically beautiful. That's my comment.
Good point. Thank you. Some of you had, I'm sorry, some of you did have conflicts in terms of the different groups. Obviously the aesthetics of the campus, where you talked about, having an open plan, having grass, having lawn, aesthetically pleasing campus was really contrary to what the water group were trying to do, which is got to reduce the turf grass because it's costing us a fortune to run it. Mark Hewitt looking pretty threadbare, but you can't keep pouring water onto the grass. How do you consider in the future you're going to overcome those type of things? Because that's a perfect example when you get out into the industry. You're going to have one team who's really strong on having plenty of grass, and you're going to have another group who's saying let's get rid of the grass. How are you going to overcome that?
Well, one of the issues that I have, like implementing the frameworks inside, is we have small students, we have small students and students. It is being utilized. So is it the most water conservation, landscape out there? Absolutely not. So are we going to tear it out? I doubt it. I doubt the students and campus will tear it out. So just being realistic, I don't see that happening. But if we can implement these alternative water supplies, then why not? We keep the lawn out there that's taking lots of water away, and just keep it out there, but find other ways to collect that water.
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't think we were particularly set on having grass or turf. The idea was more that we were to maximize the amount of undeveloped natural space that we have rather
if any new turf or anything was to be implemented, it'd have to fall under the landscape plan that we currently have in motion. And the landscape plan put in motion is usually just native plants. We actually have one of the premier Return of the Native groups here on campus that works with outlying communities to have native plants restored in dune areas or parks. And so if these projects were to move forward, it would be easy to see the connections between both Return of the Natives and falling under the landscape master plan that we have.
Okay. I've got a couple questions. The folks that were talking about the digester and very early on to make heat and power, did you guys do any research on a feedstock flow for that? Working with, you got to feed it something. Digesters eat. That's why they call them digesters. So would you be working with the landfill to bring in food waste? Are we doing food waste within the campus? Did you kind of look at the whole thing? Or?
Well, something I wanted to mention, but I figured it would be awkward with the presentation, is because the food group are so heavily focused on growing our own food, eating more fruits and vegetables, I was kind of hoping that maybe that would generate enough waste.
You'd get quite a bit. I would think you'd get quite a bit. That would be something to further flesh that out, is rather than maybe doing a massive digester in one location, maybe doing smaller ones throughout the campus so that you can feed individual buildings with energy and heat.
Yeah, that was also part of the implementation of the compost bins and other things around campus, so also ideally be used for the digester.
And then the water presentation about ASR and GWR. I work for DCA. ASR is completely separate from GWR. ASR is taking water here. They take water from the Carmel River during excess flow and put that in the ground for reuse. GWR is taking wastewater sewage and treating it drinking water standards and poking it back in the ground.
Are they using GWR?
Currently ASR is in place. If you got Jim Moore out towards Seaside, you'll see some buildings on the left and the right, some big black pipes. That's ASR, that's bringing water over from the Carmel River when there's excess water under very strict flow prescriptions from the regional board. And then GWR is in the pilot testing phase at our treatment plant in Marina.
So just make sure it's
Yeah. Everybody's kind of working on them together. CalAm and Water Management's working on ASR. CalAm, Water Management, and PCA are working on GWR.
I got just a comment on that. Maybe you looked at this. There's with the water, the leasing the water. There's kind of a bit of a conundrum there. That's a business venture. It's a creative plan. I don't want to knock it. It sounds like I'm criticizing a creative plan for making a little bit of revenue. It may be a lot of revenue given how much water is in demand here. But how do you reconcile the issue of making a whole bunch of water now available to somebody else that's not being used? Or did you have that discussion at all? It brings up the issue of water that's not being used, and we're talking about wanting to conserve water, but now you're going to give it to somebody else so they can use it.
So I kind of decided to tackle this issue individually, and Gregorio actually provided a lot of the information. He had a side discussion with Peter Lee, who works for the water management.
Right, I bet it was here when we talked. Yeah.
Right. So as far as I guess getting to that issue, I think it'd be beneficial that we share those resources with a neighboring city like Seaside, who's in desperate need of water. And instead of using heavy energy-intensive desalination plants and proposing a new desalination plant over here off the Marina Beach, we could probably utilize the resources we currently have, and with other measures to kind of conserve water and also like the current water projects going on in the area to recharge the current aquifers we have. We may, I mean it's a stretch, but we may be able to keep those water levels stable enough where we can keep a continuous flow and be able to utilize, the allocations evenly.
Great.
So we may be able to do it for a couple of years, and it definitely I did consider that we can't do it indefinitely because CSUMB is projected to finish the build out by 2025. So, I mean, just thinking about it, we probably could have more water resource allocations available that we may be able to lease, but just to kind of stay on the conservative side, I wanted to just take that more conservative point and say we may have this, this amount of water available to share. And it definitely is a risky idea, but I mean, it could work.
Yeah, it's creative. I mean, they're just different sides to it too.
Right.
Great. Sounds like you did ask the right kind of question.
I had a question on that same topic, Yvette. If we were to do that, and I'm not sure this is exactly your question, David, but if we were to do that, let's say, and lease it to somebody else, does that develop a dependency on large amounts of water, which we then take back? How do you use huge amounts of water for 5 or 10 years and then not use huge amounts of water? I don't know. That's a question I'll ask maybe the planners in here or others of you anyway. Is that a doable thing? It's kind of like giving it, but only for this many years, and then we're getting it back. Maybe recharging it would be the thing to do.
Yeah, I had a similar thought just about these days. Often the conversation about water supply is in relation to further development. So if you're going to build a building, you want to ensure that whatever that extra water is that was found or identified is going to be there in perpetuity for the life of that building or the life of that development that's going to be put into place. So that is one of the challenges, because we may identify some what we might call temporary potentials to lease water here and there, but one of the big pushes in this region is to find these indefinite sources that could support actual construction of buildings and facilities that could be in place for 100 years. So that is part of the challenge. But I thought that was a really innovative idea and thought to address our local water supply issue in some way, shape, or form, if we can find a way to use it, and then also to generate revenue for all the projects that were discussed here today. So,
just one quick comment on the whole water thing is one thing to kind of look at, especially in this area. You've got the Salinas Basin, which is one watershed, then you've got the Peninsula, Carmel Valley, which is kind of you get the Seaside Basin, and you get the Carmel Valley watershed. They're kind of tied all together by plumbing, and you really need to look at it holistically. So if you take water out of this area and ship it to Seaside, or you take water from Seaside and ship it over somewhere else, it needs to be a holistic approach. And I thought the gray water idea was really cool, and the cistern ideas, but from a wastewater guy, I need every gallon I can get to come in so I can treat it and put it back in the ground. So I'm not a big proponent of gray water. One of the issues that I see in this area especially is in the rainwater. Taking water off of roofs and saving it for irrigation is great if you're going to irrigate something that's worthwhile irrigating. If you're just going to squirt it on lawn, and most of this campus is sitting on a giant sand dune, you've all noticed, right? When it dries up, it turns into sand. It's kind of not going around. You want to catch that water before it gets in the ocean, in the runoffs from the streets. The roofs is a great idea, but catch that water, and somebody had the stormwater basins and all those kind of things. Those are fabulous. Those get the water back in the ground where it needs to go, because what we've done on the peninsula and other places for a lot of years is a whole bunch of people have clumped together. We can't use septic tanks because we put contaminants in our drinking water, so we take all this water, and up until a few years ago, before PCA and other agencies started recycling water, we'd clean it all up and ship it off to the ocean. So we're sucking it out of the ground, using it, and throwing it away. Now we're trying to suck it out of the ground, treat it, and bring it back, but we've thrown away so much that everything's lower. So trying to figure a way to get that water back into the community and back into the ground where you live would be a really interesting topic for you guys to take on sometime. And I'd like to see that. Thank you.
I wanted to commend everyone. What I liked about this particular project was that you're looking at really implementing it on the campus, and so I think that's really innovative. And I know a lot of you looked into real costs of what that would be, and I think that's something that, like, as a student, that wasn't really taught to us. So we'd had these sort of fantasy projects. I'm speaking as an architect, and I'm wondering, like, for instance, the waste management team, you know, you have these e-waste centers. I'm curious to know if you are able to work with, let's say, the waste management company here on the peninsula and other kind of local partners, commercial partners that could help with funding. So like corporations that could give money to these projects that would sort of benefit everyone. Has anyone looked into that?
Oh, actually, one specifically we picked a local one out on the seaside. It's basically our cycle, and it's basically the local aluminum can, glass, and paper recycling center down the road. And the program I wanted to mention, we're kind of pressed for time, was the Gray Bears project. Basically, they get their funding from other nonprofits in the area supporting basically education type programs of rehabilitating members in the society that probably don't have certain skills. And one of the jobs and education certifications they had was safely dismantling certain types of computer waste and basically motherboard panels and also televisions, because they were like big heavy set tube TVs because they had heavy amounts of lead in it. So they trained these individuals to safely dispose of them, and because the program had a rehabilitation attribute to the program, they were able to get funding from other nonprofits in the area. So now Gray Bears actually is taking that same idea to senior citizens and training them to not only make a profit in their area, but also stay on key with some modern technology type things. And I picked the local one because I would want something, ideally I'd like the program to be somewhere we can get to, maybe not so far from the school, and not have to rebuild a whole new center and worry about the carbon emissions we would have to do in the process of doing that. So if we're using a local one, probably better. Did that answer your question? I was wondering if it
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, good.
Oh, go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I wanted to commend you all. I thought you did, for it being, close to a dozen, in some ways disjointed sets of people, I thought you did an amazing job. You know, the PDF or PowerPoint, moving through, and just the ability of all of you to kind of move through seamlessly and working together. I thought it was really commendable. One of the things that there were a few times where there were some costs that came up through the presentation. This was this cost, or this cost for this technology, and not knowing all of the research that you all did. I'm guessing that the costs that you got were construction costs. I would encourage you to be careful about using things like that. Because what you'll find when you're actually working on a project is that your construction costs are probably around half of the actual project cost, especially if you're going line item. If it costs, $2 for the roof, when you get into mobilization and all sorts of other incidental costs, that's just of the construction. But then when you get design, project management, construction management, and permits, and if you have to go through an environmental review, your costs just went through the roof. Yeah, and if it's a simple environmental review, at that point you're probably looking at your complete construction costs, and then double it. And if it gets into a lengthy environmental review, it's probably another construction cost on top of it again. So you got to be careful about when you're using those cost factors that you're really capturing the entire cost. But kind of to take off where you were going too, and yeah, I'm a water guy, so not to pick on you all, but it's my thing. But like the comment on what you can harvest off the roof, and I forget if it was, I think it was in square feet, cubic feet? I'm forgetting the units you use.
Square feet.
Yeah, so that's like, I think it was like 2 acre-feet. And so one of the good things to do, you gotta be, when you're talking about the numbers that you're working with, you want to use them in terms that are relatable, kind of across the board. So, you know, okay, it's 80-some thousand square feet, cubic feet of water that you're harvesting. That's 2 acre-feet. And then when you start to talking about the allocation, your allocation's 1,000 acre-feet. And so, you know, you're really talking about, 2%. And so where that becomes significant is, what I think you were starting to touch on is the storage for that.
Yes.
Then your storage cost becomes significant.
Right.
And so those are the sorts of things that you have to, you wanted, and you did, and it was commendable kind of across the board, you did a good job of, well, here's the savings, it can be invested, and those sorts of things. But that's absolutely one of the things you have to consider with a lot of these things. Like there was a mention of LEEDs. That's a great certification, but if you actually look at a building becoming LEED certified, it's not necessarily good for a carbon footprint or good for economics. And so you want to be careful too that you're not just going down a path and doing a green roof because it's green roof and full speed ahead because it's green. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And you still have to, there's probably a way that it can work to make sense if you're using it for basically a cash product. So if you can harvest your water and put it into your gardens so that the people that are doing the gardening don't have to pay a water bill, that's great. That incentivizes that thing. But it's kind of looking at that whole picture that
and work with corporate America, believe it or not, as much as some people think corporations are horrible. Look for your solar. Look at purchase power agreements. Monterey Peninsula Unified has put in solar panels all over their schools. Monterey County is putting solar panels all over their schoolyards out there. And the company puts in all the infrastructure. Solar City comes in and does it. We've got a 5 megawatt plant on our solar system on our treatment plant. They put in all the infrastructure costs, all the upfront costs, and we pay about half of the energy cost that we would normally pay to PG&E. So while it's not 100% coming back into your pocket, it's a pretty good deal, and there's no infrastructure costs up front, other than maybe permitting and a few things that you have to do. So just look at all your resources when you're doing this stuff. Because you guys had some just dynamite plans. I mean, I loved it. My wife would just be going crazy if she was here. I'm going to get a copy of the tape from Dan.
Well, I was just going to say, I think this is a really fantastic class. You were saying it was the first year that you guys offered it. And I just think it's a great way to gain exposure not only to sort of people's everyday career and what they're working on related to infrastructure, but also just to start thinking yourself as to how your concentration in whatever you're studying may be applicable to our everyday infrastructure and lives. And I learned a lot today, actually. One of the things so you all did a fantastic job, and I saw like a gem in every single one of the presentations that you guys did. One of the presentations that really just blew me away because I came thinking infrastructure, okay, infrastructure, excellent. We talk about this stuff and analyze it from a CEQA standpoint every day and all of that. And was the whole food aspect, was the whole the program of thinking about food as part of our infrastructure. And not only food for us to eat, but food as in, well, why don't we grow it ourselves here? Why don't we use it as, part of the digester, as was talked about earlier? Why don't we examine the contracts we have here for the food that we have? Do we know that there are GMO foods in what we're eating, or don't we? And how might we be more local and be healthy and sustainable? That just blew me away. I wasn't anticipating hearing about that. And I also didn't know, I'm not from this area. I'm from a very ag area in Colorado, and so I think I assumed that CSUMB had an ag program or a nutrition program or something related to this amazing salad bowl valley that we have here that really feeds the world. And so I just think that's I wasn't expecting to hear about that today. And then the other thing that just kind of blew me away was the thought, and I've never had this thought, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I should have had this thought at this point in my career, but building buildings so that you can reuse the products again and again, not just building buildings with the concrete and steel, but also thinking about maybe we need to use a product to build this building so that we are planning for its reuse in the future. I thought that was really good thought and really innovative, and I appreciate all your work that you guys did. This is really fantastic.
Okay. So moving past the 2030 challenge, do you think you could design this campus with its new buildings to be net zero everything? You said no immediately. Why?
Just because I have just a gut feeling mostly. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to get close. I think it's kind of an idealist endeavor to think that it's actually financially feasible. I mean, I'm sure in a perfect world it could be done, and a lot of that would also require a lot of participation on the part of people that are using the buildings, which will never happen.
Why?
Just because none of people know or care.
But then if you're coming onto a campus which is an educational facility...
Well, ideally everybody would know and everybody would care, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get people to that point, or aside from the work of actually building and stuff.
Yeah, but you said it, well, at least your partner said it, about billing students for the energy and water use in their space.
I think that is one of the steps that's necessary to move in that direction.
Okay.
No, I guess it's just a matter of time. Go ahead.
I'll add that our campus is committed. I don't know if it's net zero, but carbon neutral. I'm not sure if the two are the same or not anymore. Yeah. So
I think it. Yeah, but well, all right. I've got different feelings about carbon neutral. I think it still comes down to the practicalities. Can you create as much energy as you use? Can you recycle enough water on site that you would use? You know, those type of things theoretically are possible, aren't they? We can put up as many solar panels. You've got enough space here to put enough solar panels up to run the electricity of 10 campuses here. But when we come down to some of the other specific things like water, you know, you've got to make some radical changes if you're going to do that. And that's not just in the infrastructure, but it's in the people, like you said, it's in the people in it. So go back to the question. You can keep quiet for a minute. Can this campus be net zero everything?
Well, from personal opinion, I don't think CSU cares about their water demand. To be honest, it's not being monitored, especially in student housing, especially East Campus housing. Considering the units over there, each unit isn't being metered, so that's something that needs to be analyzed, but they're not, so.
Great, good answer. Go at the back. Well, you had your hand up first.
I actually kind of believe that we can. I think take a look at what we did when we went to Chartwell and talking with Doug Atkins. It's just a way of changing everybody's thinking. And part of having this class, you know, it's the first time it's offered. You know, myself, I don't know, a lot of the rest of us didn't, a lot of these concepts we didn't really think about or just touched on in other classes. So I think getting people involved, getting the students involved on campus and just having them see it so that they kind of understand, you know, and it becomes ingrained as just part of, like, that's what our campus stands for. And like I said, like what they do in Chartwell, you know, it's younger kids, but they're showing them how they're saving water, how they're saving energy. It's like very visual, so people kind of get that and start thinking about it, and then they just unconsciously, like, you know to turn the water off, or you know when you leave a room and turn the lights off if they aren't automated. And I think it's really changing our mindset, getting us students on campus to care about water usage in East Campus and things like that.
Right.
Like that's what's going to really change it. Like if we really demanded, you know, the people will start listening. The administrator will start listening, and then they'll want to change things. I think it's possible, but I think it'll take a lot of time.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I don't know whether anybody read the article in the New York Times at the weekend that the Chevy Volt people, they've got a competition going amongst them. Do you know what the leader is at the moment in miles per gallon? 4,000 miles per gallon. All right? These guys are real nerds about it, all right? We're talking about drill down. They've even got apps that can break into the Chevy Volt systems that they can, okay. It's the feedback which is the big thing, right? It's the feedback you can show people. I'm sorry, I stopped you asking a question. No.
One of the things that I see it's possible, I'm an optimist, but you guys sort of, what you did, that kind of 30-year implementation plan, I think that's really critical because you can start with the low-hanging fruit about changing people's behavior. So through smart metering, through the bike share, I don't see that as a high cost, and that has a lot of improvements and helps with the kind of carbon emissions.
And health.
And health, yes, that's right. And health is a big thing. So if you can kind of start through the sort of easy, low-hanging fruit, you start to change people's students' behavior, staff, administration, and then you can achieve those big ones.
Oh. I actually agree. I think that in the future we could reach net zero, but I think one of the biggest issues is the lack of education in the educational system. Too many of the students outside of environmental science, biological science, marine science even, we take a lot of classes where we learn about the importance of making a difference in the environment and local ecosystems, but other majors don't really touch on that. So I feel like students on this campus are really unaware of the repercussions to living in the dorms and not having to pay for their water so they can take hour-long showers without any worry, or living in the dorms and not having to pay for their energy consumption and leaving the lights on, leaving their stuff plugged in. And so I think the biggest issue is we need to educate not just the scientific majors, but business majors, comm majors. All the majors on campus should be required to take a class like this so they can see the reason why we need to make this change, and not just people going around and telling them you should make this change because we say so. So I feel like this major has inspired me to want to be a better person, so I think it's important that other majors get a little touch of why we should be better people together.
You mean whipping them into shape?
Yes. In some sense.
I'll add on that. Yeah, I'm not an environmental science or studies major. I'm actually a social science major, and I don't know anything about soils or hydrology or anything like that. I don't know. I'm a soft science major, not hard science. So I really lack that fundamental background, but without this class I wouldn't have known anything about water issues or energy issues. I mean, I would have been ignorant for one class. It's kind of sad.
The social science is so key to changing the environmental situation. So there's such a connection there. That's really important. So you make a really good point, is that understanding the economics, the business major, it's important for them to understand this. The social scientist, there are connections throughout every situation to the environment and our impact on that and how we can lessen our impacts on this. So I was just going to say one thing. I think you guys touched on it, and a lot of folks, pilot projects are a lot of the way that things happen in the real world with regard to a lot of these efforts. Is people do pilot projects to see, is this really going to work, you know? So taking some of the things you proposed and, you know, focusing in on one dorm and saying, okay, this dorm is going to be the one we're going to do this project on for, you know, 2 years or whatever. You know, kind of identifying pilot projects like you have and like people talk about. That's often the way that things start actually in kind of the real world, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Or the academic world.
The academic, yeah, exactly.
You all, one of the first concepts that came up was about a closed campus. There are examples out there. And so I went to one, and so it was a closed campus for the most part. There were guardhouses that you had to get past to drive your vehicle on campus, but for the most part it was just pedestrians and a bus that drove around. So there are essentially pilot projects that are throughout the world. And so, and a lot of you touched on those, examples from where this technology was implemented in what other place. But especially from a university standpoint, there are a lot of these concepts that have been implemented at universities because you kind of are a university is kind of its own little test project, and kind of expected, in the world that you're going to be testing these things out and experimenting and learning from them.
And not reinventing the wheel. I think that's kind of what you're saying. And I have to say, in my everyday professional life, I'm always looking for examples to help me. Instead of just starting from nothing, I'm always contacting peers at other agencies across the state saying, have you already done this? Can you send me that? I saw your template on this. Can I use that? And just trying to learn from others as much as possible. What you guys were doing in here, citing other studies and sources and things, so that's great. Are you guys going to be presenting this to any board or group here related to the master plan process?
Well, I'll admit, I was hoping that our president of the corporation was going to come. He said he was going to be here. Oh. Kevin, if you listen to this later. So anyway, I will pass this on to him. That's why I recorded it.
Great.
I was hoping. I'm the only staff or faculty here from campus. I thought we were going to have several. So I'm really pleased that you all came. That was really good because I really wanted them to have an audience of experts, and other folks from across the campus would have been nice. But they're going to see it.
Yeah.
So, and this is their last day. Some of them are graduating in a few days. All right? But the rest of them are done with the class, so they'll move on to greener pastures within CSUMB or else greener pastures outside. But but hopefully individually, there'll be ways that they can each make a difference. Everybody here. So, yeah, thank you, Barry.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and it is the end of class. Out of respect for your time and everybody else's, I want to thank you again. You all.